Welcome to episode 16, everyone. I'm your main host, Coach YoYo. Obviously, I'm always the same. We have Coach.
Does not like he matters.
I know.
We have Coach Nick as our co-host today. But today we are doing something a little bit different. Today we are actually interviewing our very own Coach Desi. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Don't be shy. Okay.
Okay.
We're just gonna ask some random questions about what we're going to talk about today.
Very personal.
Very personal. No,
Give it to me.
But today we're seriously talking about, and actually she brought it up to our attention actually, and I think we should have this conversation about eating disorder. And that's what we want to discuss today. And mind you, we are not expert at that. We're not doctors, but we want to address a few things, especially from a coaching perspective as well. And I never have eating disorder. I don't know a lot about eating disorder, but I've been reading a lot on that the last couple of days and just kind of learning some tendencies of what the difference between anorexia, bulimia, and binging on eating disorder. So I've learned a lot the last couple of days, but we want to hear your story, Coach Desi, and what are your thoughts on that? Or maybe we can go back to when you started to develop eating disorder, right?
Yeah. I believe I was 21 when I started my whole fitness journey. And I started going to the gym. Someone that I was close to at the time and trusted gave me fat burners. So I started taking fat burners, going to the gym.
For no reason. Just say, hey.
Yeah, I wasn't
you should
in
try
good
something.
shape or anything. Yeah. Just
That sounds like anyone
that
sounds like anyone who's ever recommended a fat burner.
Yeah.
Like, hey, it just burns fat, so just take it.
Yeah, like someone that I loved and trusted. Just recommended it to me. So I was like, okay. And so I started doing that, and then I was barely eating I was probably eating 12 to 1,400 calories a day. And then I was training for a Spartan race and a half marathon. So my workouts were pretty intense, and then I would go on these long runs, and I just was not fueling my body properly. I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that I wasn't hungry, and I was like, yes.
I achieved something.
I'm doing something right.
Yeah, those fat burners must have worked.
Yeah. Stop
They
it, bro.
did. I literally dropped 10 pounds within 2 weeks.
Wow.
And next thing you know, I just wouldn't really eat at all. And I developed this relationship with food where if I ate anything, it better be chicken or vegetables. I wouldn't even mess with carbs. And so next thing you know, you can literally see my rib cage, and everyone's like, you're looking really skinny, and I'm like, oh my gosh, thanks. I was proud because I was getting so much attention.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to say it was good attention, but I was getting attention, and I was feeling good, honestly. But
so
then
that emotion ties you with that situation. You see the problem now,
So that made you not want to eat.
yes,
Anymore, just because you're getting the attention. So as long as you don't eat, you're gonna keep getting the attention.
So
Exactly.
you get the dopamine hit from those conversations. I'm like, oh my gosh. So if I don't eat, I get some attention. That's crazy. Okay, go on.
And so then towards the end, I was starting to my blood sugar was starting to get out of whack. My emotions were all over the place. And so what happened was on the weekends, or let's say just the time where I was feeling stressed, I would start to indulge and eat. And then
You would binge eat at this point.
yes. So for
Only
a
on the
while I
weekend,
was you call it, say, anorexic or whatever.
Yeah.
And then after a while, I would probably say it was probably 6 months to a year is when I started binge eating, and then I would go throw up. And or
you
sometimes
throw up every time you binge eat. And how long would you binge eat? For example, a day, 2 days?
it would be
hours?
probably a day,
Wow.
if that. Sometimes it was a day. Sometimes it was just one sitting of some donuts or something.
Did you ever experience like bleeding through your esophagus, for example?
I didn't.
No, you never got to that point.
No,
Wow,
thank God. I do remember thinking like, I don't care what this does to me as long as I stay skinny.
Wow.
And now I'm still living with the repercussions of that, because now I have every stomach problem, I feel like, in the world.
Yeah.
And
Do you think it can literally stem from that situation?
Yeah, because then your acidity in your stomach gets messed up too. But then your body, I didn't find this out till, so this was all when I was like 21, 22, 23. But it wasn't, I would do it for maybe just every once in a while. And then once I was 24 and I started going through a divorce, and no one around me had ever been through a divorce, like not even my parents, like I had nobody. And
which is very opposite for what me and Nick usually go through. Both of our parents are divorced. Jess's siblings, some of them are divorced, and a lot of our friends are. So
when I went through my divorce, it was very easy to find a support group.
Yeah.
Which
So,
was,
which like that's the thing
nice.
is like I had friends and like the support and the love and everything, but no one could understand what I was going through.
Yeah.
And
That must be a hard journey. That was a hard journey.
Divorce
Yeah,
itself
it
is just
was.
tricky. I mean, when parents go through it, it's one thing, but when you are going through it, it's weird.
It is.
It's really weird.
Because you're going through a loss, but then you also feel like a failure.
But
and you have embarrassment.
But I was also I was sad that obviously my wife and I were getting a divorce, but then at the same time I was happy.
Yes.
Because it's like now I can start doing what I want, but then realizing, okay, well that means I'm not going to have anyone. And so it was this back and forth of like excitement, but then extreme sadness.
Yes.
And then it got to the point where it's like I figured out I didn't necessarily miss my ex-wife. I just missed the idea of having someone with me, right? So then you had to kind of go through that whole thing, and it's weird.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts to it. And so going through that, like I didn't know how to handle my emotions. Like I didn't know how to process everything, but then also I was trying to be like the hard ass that was like, like this is the best thing that ever happened to me, which it was, but also I didn't want anyone to worry about me, and so I just hid my emotions deep down and I hid it with food. And so then I started binging a lot more, because the same thing, like once you go through like a breakup or a divorce, you can't really eat, And so I just stopped eating, and I was like, I'm going to be the fittest like person, I'm going to use this as revenge, and which it worked for a while. And then like I would just have moments where it would hit me, and I wouldn't allow myself the space to like cry or to ask for help or anything like that. I'm like, no, I got this, but I was like, no, I don't got this.
Did you like try to hide it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. We literally just had this conversation the other day with one of our other podcasts before this, where we're talking about mental health, especially for men as well. But it sounds like it happens on females as well, where you don't want to seem weak. You don't want to seem vulnerable. Yeah.
Exactly.
But then you're vulnerable right now. And you're talking about it right now. And I think that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, I never really thought I would be this open about it ever, because I was so ashamed.
I'm not going to lie. When you message us about having an episode,
we were shocked.
We were shocked. We're like, wait a minute. She wants to?
Because it's not just us having a conversation. Like, you're telling us what you went through.
And which is really cool, because this, how how many people can relate to this episode? That's amazing. And the fact that, because people admire you, female admire you, obviously the way you look, your social media, and the fact that you're vulnerable right now and talk about it, and people are like, wait a minute, if she has that same issue and she can share it, so can I. So I appreciate it.
But overcome it as well.
Yeah.
Not just females too. Like I admire you like crazy, for sure.
Thanks, Colleen.
We do.
But I also know that statistically, a lot of, relevant mental health disorders are rooted in shame. Depression, you're ashamed of your job, the way you look, whatever it is. Anxiety is shame, looking stupid. Shame is like the number one. It's I can't remember where I read this, but it's like the most destructive emotion is shame. Like
shame and guilt.
Shame and guilt.
Yeah. So yeah, going through the divorce, that whole thing happened. And that's when it really started to kick off. And so a couple months later, like I was having all these stomach issues and,
sorry. So just to recap, you about started on your fitness journey when you were 21, early into that, got on fat burners, and then you continued that type of no carb, chicken, vegetables lifestyle for several years. And then the divorce came around, and then it just kind of got, amplified, of course, just with emotions, and you didn't want to eat, you weren't in the mood and things like that. So then this is kind of where we're at now. So you're, 3 years into this lifestyle at this point?
Yeah.
Or so?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, I was still taking fat burners and still just eating low calories. And then on the weekends is where I would start to binge more and more. It was like every weekend.
Does that happens behind closed doors? Okay.
What about
no one knew about it.
during that time, like on the weekends? What about alcohol consumption?
Oh yeah, I was drinking every weekend pretty much. And so yeah, it was just this like spiral pattern that I was in, and I knew I was in it. I just didn't know. Part of me thought it was normal, and the other part of me was like, this is not okay. But I didn't know how to get myself out. And so then I started seeing this, I think it's like a kinesiology.
Kinesiologist?
Yeah. And so they do like the muscle testing and everything. Well, it turns out I was literally allergic to everything. But he told me, I'll never forget this. He was like, our bodies are so smart, and they, like if you, let's say you got in a car crash, your body is distraught, like you're stressed out. And then after you go get a hamburger, right? Your body is going to connect that hamburger to you being in a car accident, which is going to cause your body distress, right? And so that's kind of what I did with food, like, because I admitted to him that, like, I was like, I've been going through a divorce, I've been depressed, things like that. And he was like, your body is literally connecting certain foods to when you're the time that you're feeling those emotions. Yep. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so we did all that. I worked with him for a while. And then come 2019, I remember going to the Dominican Republic, and it was an all-inclusive, like all you can eat. So of course I was drunk off my ass. And then I was just eating everything. Because before this, I was like, hey, I can't, I was on a strict diet. And we get there, and all this happens. And I remember going into the bathroom, throwing up, and looking in the mirror at myself. And I was just like, why are you doing this? Like, why do you keep putting yourself through this hell?
And no one know what's going on.
Yeah, no one knew.
And who were you there with?
One of my coworkers at the time, who I was close with, but she didn't even.
She had no idea.
No.
Wow.
This is crazy to hear, though, because obviously there's a lot of things that are happening behind closed doors. And I hope people understand when they listen to this podcast is you may not know somebody that are going through the same journey that you did.
Yeah, I was so good at hiding it. I remember I made this promise to myself. I'm like, I'm never going to do this again. Like, this is the last of it. And I remember literally the next day waking up and I felt so good. And I felt so free. I remember even calling my mom and I was like, Mom, I feel like I'm on drugs, but I'm not. I'm just so happy. And she was like, okay.
She's like, what is wrong with you? Okay.
She's like, why don't you come home and let's talk?
Did you ever tell your mom at that point? Or did you have that conversation later?
Yeah, I didn't tell her for a long time. I think it was probably like 2 years ago.
Wow.
That I told her.
Wow.
It's because I ended up doing like a little post on like a before and after, and I did mention like a little bit of an eating disorder in there. And so then I think I told her like right before I was about to post that, just so she would know. And she felt awful, like just so sad. And that's not what I wanted her to feel.
Well, I mean, as a parent,
but
right? You
exactly.
don't want your little one to go through
and like
that.
I understand that now, but at the time, like
Yeah.
that was one of the reasons why I didn't want to tell her, because I didn't want to put my emotions onto her as well. And so so then so I made that promise to myself in 2019. And
did you have that realization after you came back from Dominican Republic, or were you there? And you had that moment there. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so come 2020, when I went to Africa, I was there and I was experiencing such heavy emotions, from seeing the kids that were just like starving, that didn't have like food. Their clothes were dirty. Like I went into it's not even like houses that they were living in. And I just I didn't realize how sheltered I was. And it just, 'cause you see these kinds of things like on TV, you
Social
hear about
media,
them. Yeah. But when you're in it, it's a whole different.
Because then it becomes real.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, this isn't just on TV or in a magazine.
And
like
the
you actually
houses-
see the people affected by it.
And the houses that you were talking about, it's really just a hut.
Yeah.
It's
Just a
really
little
just,
shanty.
and the reason why I know that, because in Malaysia we do have a very, very similar situation there. And there's big cities, just like a normal city. And then when you go outside of that city, you live in the very poverty types of communities. And legit, I was lucky to grow up in both of my parents are upper middle classes or middle classes, right? So I never had that issue. But I always, almost all of my friends would have a normal neighborhood. One street over, it's like all the houses kind of like huts, but it's on just dirt floors. And it's so bizarre, but I was used to it going, living that lifestyle and having friends, but they're the most happiest people in the world, right?
Yeah.
Even though despite not having anything, but yeah, when I moved to the U.S., it's definitely like culture shock, and that's why I never take anything for granted, and sometimes I forget.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes I forget. I bitch about my car or house. Sometimes, things or food. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, wait a minute.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't. Seeing that and being there was different. Because how long were you in Africa?
A month.
You were there for 4 weeks.
What country in Africa?
Yeah.
Zambia.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's enough to really put you in that perspective.
Oh, yeah.
But imagine living there for literally for 6 months.
Yeah.
Or years of your life, and then come back. You'll never see things.
No
the same
food,
again.
Exactly.
no access to water. They have to worry about the mosquitoes. They have to worry about everything.
Yeah. Like I had to get a bunch of shots before I went and everything. But so yeah, I was experiencing all these emotions, and I didn't really have anyone there with me. And my first thought was to go to food. And that was because it was so heavy for me that at the time, like I had figured out, I had built a good relationship with food when I was back in 2019 all the way to the end of 2020 until I went to Africa. And then when I got there and I felt all those emotions, I binged, and then I found myself throwing up again. Because I was like, what did I just do? Like, I can't believe, like, I've worked so hard and all these things. So I realized that I was never taught as a kid. So I had my mom who was very emotional and let you know like how she was feeling and was very expressive, you know, but then I had my dad who everyone loved my dad, but he just wasn't emotional like at all. And I was like, well, I want to be like my dad because everybody likes him. And like, I don't know. And so I would just shove things down. And my mom's side of the family, they would use food as their way of processing emotions or like making them feel better.
Comfort.
Yes, comfort. But then I had my dad's side where they would shove all their emotions down and just keep them in and not talk about it at all.
So two extremes.
Yes. And so that was literally what I was going through. And so once I got back, I had to recreate again my relationship with food for one, but then also my emotional relationship with myself and being able to really talk about my emotions and forgive myself. And which then I had, I think you worked with her a little, Haley. I think you did. I don't know, but Calderwell. But I hired her as she was my coach before for like emotions. She's like an emotional coach. Yeah, you know who I'm talking about now.
More like an emotional life coach kind of.
Yeah.
Was this after you came back from Africa?
So this was right before I went to Africa.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had been working on some things, and then when I got back, I hired her again, and she helped me work through a lot of it. And so now here I am, and I feel like I still will have some of those tendencies come back up. But like, I know I'm like, okay, do I need to cry? Do I need to take a nap? Do I just need to like talk to someone and get like all my thoughts and feelings out into the open? And so those are like my go-to things, or sometimes I'll just need to like move my body and get those emotions like rolling, because sometimes they can just get so stuck.
Yeah.
And then it feels like we become those emotions. And then that's when we become a victim of our own bullshit or just emotions in general. And so now I've learned healthy techniques on how to deal with all of that.
How does it make you feel thinking back to those days where you were dealing with that?
Yeah, I literally I've done a lot of like inner child work as well. And I've had to go back into those moments and just like hug myself and tell me that, you know, it's going to be okay. And like, you're worth so much more than what you look like and what your body looks like. Cause that was my whole thing, is I was like, I gotta look good. I gotta look a certain way, especially at the time, cause I was a personal trainer and no one wants like an out of shape, you know, bad looking personal trainer. And so I also had a lot of pressure on myself for that reason as well. And so
how do you deal with that now? So where are you at now mentally, emotionally with, eating disorder?
Yeah.
Do you know how to cope with it now? If so, how did you deal with that? Maybe listeners can actually understand and maybe use the same tactics as you did.
I feel like my biggest thing was, because I can still feel it when it happens, is I'll either be going through like a lot of things, you know, that like I'm a very busy person. And so sometimes like I don't give myself the space to just process my thoughts and feelings, or I can't remember what I was going to say. But so now like I'm just aware of it. And so I'll ask what I said before is like, I'll ask myself like, do I need to call somebody and just like have someone be my soundboard so I can get this like commotion out of my mind or my body, or do I need to work out? You know, another thing is too, is I didn't realize how important blood sugar is. And so now I'm always making sure like I'm eating every 3 hours and drinking enough water and just staying on top of things as well. But I feel like the biggest thing that's helped me is just having a friend to call that knows you or doesn't even know me, just like is able to listen. Because emotions, sometimes it's really hard to sit in those emotions. And a lot of us don't want to do it. Or we're so busy that we don't have the time and allow the space for that to come to the surface and to work through it and let it go.
From an outside perspective, right, what I see and what I hear is a lot of times when people either anorexia or bulimia or just eating disorder or binging eating completely, it's just a lot of times it happens behind closed doors. No one knows what's going on. And I think what you said was having a support system is probably a huge thing, and have that conversations, and it's probably a huge thing. But also now that you are a coach with us at Unfinished Lifestyle, you understand the cause of why after you're binge eating, right? Because when was the last time you binge eat? Be honest. When was the last time?
I think it was when I was in Africa, so 2021.
2020, 2021, right? So it's been a while. And now that you've been coping with it for some time now, it's been really well. And I think a lot of that too, people don't understand nutrition completely, right? They don't know food is fuel. And a lot of the times when you said earlier, you said you avoid carbs, come on, right? Or you avoid fat or avoid certain types of food. And I think the biggest thing is educating yourself with nutrition completely. Understand, hiring a coach, for example. Once you have that knowledge and consistency, and now you understand, because sometimes I binge too. Don't get me wrong. Like sometimes a day, like I'll watch a movie, I'll have popcorn, I have some candies, whatever, and I'll eat. And then after that, I'm like, cool, I'm good. I never felt that guilt. Sometimes I do, but then I'm like, okay, I'm going to snap out of it. The next day, I'll do better, right? I'm not going to do that again. But I've never done it behind closed doors, though. I'm usually with people, someone, or at a barbecue or something. I'll eat a huge plate of food, and I'm like, cool, that's my cheat meal, because I know what it is. I think one of the biggest problem is a lot of people don't know when to stop. They just keep eating and eating and eating and eating, and then they continue to eat behind closed doors, and because they feel disgusted.
But I think it's also like what you said, kind of how you grew up with your one side of the family not showing emotion and other side way too emotional.
Yes.
Like, y'all need to chill.
Yes.
And I'm thankful that I never had anything like that, because my mom, everyone on her, like all of her siblings, everyone, they're not the healthiest people, and they're obese. They're big. They take a lot of comfort in food. It's sodas. One of my uncles would drink like 3 or 4 big gulps a day. And those things are like 120 ounces each. You have that a day. They're always eating candy. I mean, everything you can think of. Junk food, chips, cookies, like whatever the hell it is. And my mom would take comfort in that. So when she would have one of her, bad days, which weren't bad, she was just psychotic, she would go get food, and she would take comfort in that. And then we would get food, but then she wouldn't necessarily get upset that we ate it, but you could tell it bothered her. And I remember even being young, like 4 or 5 years old, I'm like, why does mom get so mad that she goes and gets food, but I've never seen dad get mad. I've never seen him do that. And when she eats certain things, then she's, emotional about it. But I see my dad. I remember one time before soccer practice, I watched my father eat 13 Big Macs in one sitting, and the dude was totally fine. Damn. He can just eat and eat and eat. And now, after I've gone through all my shit, I'm looking back, and I looked up to my dad so much that I started mimicking him from a young age. And I'm thankful I did that, because I don't deal with the things that my mom would have put me through, because she was a stay-at-home mom. So I don't have the guilt of eating certain things. I did have some emotional things I had to deal with, but I think from being that young and just saying, I want to be like dad, kind of like how you wanted to be like your dad, that's what helped me avoid
when I was doing my research as well. And a lot of people that have these types of tendencies, right? You not necessarily have to have a binge or eating disorder, diagnosed, but a lot of people have those tendencies. They usually start from that, when they were adolescents, when they were younger, developing those types of emotions and feeling. Because why? Because almost every single person, I don't know if you have that same issue, almost like every single person that I talk to about eating disorder, they usually talk about their parents or a mom or a dad or someone in their family that also have the same thing. Like, I couldn't tell you how many times our client says, "Oh yeah, my mom's been on this diet pill since young."
And that was the thing with my family is I grew up just like listening to my grandma, my mom, like being like, okay, I'm going to go on a diet, like, and just like, I'm so fat, like I hate the way I look.
Wow.
And I remember in 8th grade, I was a cheerleader and I was wearing this tighter shirt. And I would, at the time, like I would just eat whatever I wanted, and my mom like pointed out I had a little like pudgy thing, which I love my mom, and she didn't mean it in a bad way, but how I took it was because she was like, you better watch like what you're eating. And I was just like,
She said that.
gosh.
She said that
because and the reason why is because she didn't want me to end up like her, because my mom is
so the intention was coming from a caring place,
yes.
but
so that actually triggers a survival instinct because you're adolescent and you rely on your parents. It's a fear of rejection immediately. Like that's what happens.
Well, I felt so judged after that, and like I still feel judged.
This is what was so big. I'm big at this, right? So I coach a lot of parents, and the first thing I tell them: do not ever tell your kids that they're fat, they're underweight. They need to eat more because of this, and eat less because of this. Like, you have to lead by example. Don't push them to that point where you may not know what you said. That could be harmful.
but it can cause issues down the road.
Hell yeah, 100%. Yeah. And I've seen that in real life. Like, I've seen my little nephews or my nieces. Oh, I don't want to eat this extra bread because mom said that it's going to make me fat. And I'm like, and I looked over, doing what I do for a living. I'm like,
You kidding me?
what did you just say?
Yeah.
It's okay to eat. And when people ask me what I do with my kid, I'm not doing anything. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm just leading by example.
Yeah.
We eat every 2 to 3 hours. We have the foods that we have at the house. Don't get me wrong. He eats chicken nuggets. He eats fries. He eats normal kid food. But I don't restrict him on any of that.
You even said yesterday that you asked him, what do you want to eat? And he said steak and salad.
Steak and salad.
And that's what he wanted to eat. You wanted
he's
you're going to
2.
eat this or you're not going to eat that. Like, what do you want to eat?
I'm like, cool. If you want to eat steak and
I've
salad,
had clients who've said, going back to the parents, when they were kids, their parents telling them, like in an aggressive way, you are fat, you need to go on a diet, and restricting them on food, and then making them feel guilty, and causing a lot of emotional damage and psychiatric damage, but it's because of their own issues. The mom was overweight and she knew she needed to lose weight, but instead of her doing something, she's taking that anger and frustration out on the kids and telling them that, and then now they come to us and we're dealing with that. So it's not just we need to correct blood work, we need to look at their eating habits. It's a lot of same thing. We need to work on the emotional attachment to food. We need to work on that relationship. And I mean, I've told Nanette, when our daughter's born, when we have our second kid, and as they get older, I definitely don't want them every day after school asking, like, can we go get a Happy Meal or go get a kids meal or whatever. But I want to make it a fun thing where on the weekends we'll wake them up and say, hey, stay in your pajamas, we're going to go to IHOP and get breakfast as a family, and we're going to do something fun. So at least let them know, like, going out and eating is okay, but what we have at home is what you're going to eat, and try to just at least teach them why we're eating at home.
Yes, exactly.
I mean,
And then just like not doing it for rewards.
Yeah,
too.
I don't want guilt versus reward.
Yeah.
I do not want that. I don't want, like, I remember being in elementary school, and the Harmons right by FTC. I lived right by that, just up the street. And if we got an A on one of our tests, we would bring it in. At the time when you walked into the grocery store, there was, like, in the deli, there's a little ice cream parlor. And there's this older guy, and if we showed him our paper that we got 100% on an assignment or a test, he'd give us a free ice cream cone. And so when I was little, I'd kind of start to associate that. Like at school, like, I'm going to get 100% so I can go get ice cream. And if I didn't get 100%, I was so sad because now I can't go get the ice cream. At Harmon's. And so I don't want my kids to go through that.
Yeah.
So
No, I feel that. And I remember when I was 15, like of course, I'm going through all these emotions, you know, as teenagers do. And again, like my parents didn't know how to navigate that for me. And so I got put on Prozac.
Oh,
And so
You
what
were
that
15?
Mm-hmm.
wow.
So what that did was just suppress everything for me. And so I was
Could you tell when you were on it? Like when you took it, or did you think that you felt better? Does that make sense? Like, did you take it and you're like, I feel better, or could you tell? Like,
no, I did. Like I
everything
was
kinda
just
off?
like just
Monotone.
Yes,
Yeah.
so monotone. I was just used to just being okay all the time. But I remember something like sad had happened, and I wanted to cry, but I couldn't.
That's crazy.
It's so wild to like think about. And I just like myself, it's the Pisces. I'm just very emotional. And I feel like that is one of my ways of like releasing, you know? So when I think I was 27, I was 27, and I had this like strong feeling that I need to get off of it. And so I slowly.
How long were you on that?
15 to 27.
12
What?
years you were taking this?
Yeah. It was on and off, but yeah, for the most part. Because once I would start to like go downhill, then I would like, okay, I got to get on, you know, something. Because I would try and go off of it because I didn't want to be reliant on it. But then when I would, I didn't know how to handle my emotions.
Because it's suppressing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's the thing that drives me nuts.
And I was used to being happy all the time.
Yeah, but when stuff like that comes up, right? And like our clients deal with that, even if it's not a mental health thing, if it's, you know, an actual, like, I guess a physical health condition, I feel like rather than trying to figure out root cause, so understanding, you know, why are you having a hard time with the emotions? You know, how do we correlate that with the eating disorder? How do we address whatever it is that caused it in the first place to resolve it? The go-to answer is just take this goddamn pill. And then that causes long-term issues. You know, this have made you a robot pretty much.
Yeah.
But then I'm sure part of it was also a diuretic. So you had probably some weight issues. You probably weren't hungry. There was a lot of other things that maybe, luckily, you didn't develop. But it just, and people don't want to be on these pills for the rest of their life or these medications, but they don't know what else to do.
Exactly.
And when you go and ask the doctors for help, their whole thing is, oh, okay, well, let's try a different medication then and see how, maybe see if that one doesn't do it. Yeah, or lower the dose.
That's the blessing of modern medicine. It's instant. But that's the curse of modern medicine, is that it's instant.
Exactly.
Like, how long is it going to take you, or you're still, I'm sure you're doing better, but you're still, I mean, just like me, I haven't had a drop of alcohol in 5 years, and there's still sometimes I get stressed and I'm like, oh, I could really go for a drink right now. You know what I mean? And it's like,
but the thing is, you for you two at least, you're conscious about it and you're aware of it, and
but it took years. That's the point that I was going to make, and that's
taken years.
People don't want.
Yeah, but
It's
now
hard,
you're at
dude.
the point where
It
it's
is.
like, when these are coming up, you address it and you're like, well, I need to figure out how to resolve it so I don't go back to that. Right. And for me, back in same thing, like 2018, 2019, I was the most depressed I've ever been in my life, constantly wanting to kill myself. I can't tell you how many times I was on the phone with suicide hotline, talking to them, in my closet at my dad's house, having a panic attack. I couldn't even go to the grocery store to get food because I was so afraid to leave. And same thing, I had one of my best friends committed suicide, and the night he did it, I missed his phone call. And every time he would try, he would call me. And the one night I missed it was when he did it. So I struggled with that. But my biggest thing was, when I was in therapy, is I did not want to get on pills, no matter how bad it got, because I saw my mom constantly was on stuff, and whenever she would change is when she'd get to be her worst. And I didn't want to end up like her or anyone on her side of the family. And my dad didn't know I was in therapy for over a year because I didn't want to tell him, because I thought he was going to be embarrassed and ashamed of me. And because from where he grew up, right? He came from Serbia, and you know, at least when he was a kid, now it's different, but when he was a kid, and especially for my grandfather, the men, you don't show emotions. Like, your emotions are, you're happy and you're loving, and I mean, just to be blunt, you're horny. Like, those are the only three things you get to feel. Other than that, you don't feel anything else. And so telling my dad, who came from a foreign country, who grew up that way, that his son is dealing with these things, that made me feel ashamed. Yeah. But my biggest thing was, I'm not going to get on these goddamn pills because it's not going to solve anything. So I had to sit and dwell in it.
I want people to understand this. If you're listening to this, you know, we talked about mental health yesterday with another podcast, and today eating disorder is just another mental health, right? We need to normalize it and just really have a conversation about it, because It's not. And by the way, I had no idea what Nick just said, and I've known him for a long time. I just found that out yesterday.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea he had depression. I had no idea he was on suicide hotline at his dad's house. He's always been cool, calm, collective individual.
Yeah.
And luckily I don't have any of that tendencies, right? But to the point where we need to have a conversation. It's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
It's really okay not to be okay. You know what I mean? And it just please stop hiding it. And I think we need to share more of that. And now that we all are a coach, right? And how do we translate to this into our coaching? Well, the first thing we teach our clients, food is fuel.
One thing I wanted to say really quick.
Go ahead.
Talking about it is good. Talking with a qualified professional is
100%.
better.
Yes.
100%.
Because a lot of people think that I should just talk about it, and then they call someone. Friends are great, but friends are not your therapist. Friends are not your doctor.
Right.
I mean, we're going to
Friends are
listen,
not-
and if you ask for advice, then
Yeah.
maybe we'll share what our experience or how we would handle it. But yes,
Yeah.
go
talking to
go find a
the
therapist.
correct people to
Yes.
clarify.
Yeah, like
is more important.
I was when I was 25, I think I started seeing a therapist, and I saw him until I got kicked off my parents' insurance because I turned 26.
We're old.
Yep.
That happened to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other thing too with a therapist is shop around. Like sometimes people are like, oh, I went to therapy one time and the person said this. It's like, hey,
Well, it's
then
like you're not going
that-
to resolve everything in one
Exactly.
Yeah,
session.
it's like just because you test drove a car you didn't like doesn't mean you never drive.
Exactly.
You go find another one.
Yeah.
Like you go.
Well, same thing with the nutrition coaching.
But then there's
Like,
also
you know.
different specialists too.
100%.
Like, there's therapy
100%.
for childhood trauma, relationships, disorder, like anxiety. So you just got to find like the right one. Same thing with coaches. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? You got to find.
When I was
the
thankful,
for
the
your
therapist
goals.
I found, when I told him I didn't want to get on antidepressants, he said, good, because when people come here asking me for him, I tell them to go find a different therapist.
Yeah.
He was very much, we're going to find root cause, we're going to do this. He told me about some vitamins and things like what we
Of
do
course,
that I could
yeah.
take. One was called SAM-E, and it does help with dopamine regulation. And my parents got me a box at Costco, and I would take that. I don't know if it really helped, but the fact that he was more, no, you need to get some hobbies. You need to start talking to people about this. You need to start working on it. And
Isn't
then
it
try this
amazing
little
when somebody's
vitamin.
like, "Hey, have you ever tried to go out and live your life?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "What?"
I know, but I would leave those sessions. I don't know about you, Des, when or Colton, when you would leave those therapy sessions. I mean, I felt like I got hit by a bus.
Yeah.
And oh my God, like I
used
had
to get
every plan to
so-
go to the gym afterward, and I would leave that appointment and be like, "What the?"
I
Yeah,
used to
it
get
is
so
emotionally draining.
Oh
mad.
my God.
Did you ever get angry?
Yeah.
I used to drive home, and I remember being like, just so out of control, angry, and I would start yelling in my car, be like, "That bitch doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. What a fucking idiot! Oh, you have this problem, and that's why blah blah blah. Fuck you!" Like I was so mad, and then I remember being like, "Why
wait a
am I
minute.
so angry? Maybe I should go back," because I was like, nobody's really like got me that upset
Yeah.
before, because she would just tell me.
Yeah.
I'd be like, "Well, dude, and I didn't realize I was doing it. I totally was like, I'm in therapy because everyone else has done me wrong." And then she was like, "Well, you were in this situation and you could have left. Like, yeah, that person was
Yeah, they
blah,
did
blah,
you
blah,
wrong, but you
could have
stayed."
left. But this, that, and the other. So that's your fault." And I was like, "She doesn't know
But
what she's
accepting
talking about."
responsibility
It was
is
so
tough.
hard.
Yes.
For me,
It
I was
so
mad
hard.
at how simple it was.
That's what made me
Because
mad too.
I would go and I tell my wife all the time, if it wasn't for Tinder, I would be single to say we wouldn't have met, because I was never someone, and Johan knows,
Like,
I
put
could
yourself out there.
Well, I could never just go up and approach a woman that I thought was attractive and be like, "Hey, how are you?" and talk. Like, hell no. No way.
He would froze.
No, I would. I would get. I would
Hey,
get
guys.
I'd get the worst thing. I'd go up and be like, "Hey, have you had water before? Like cool shoelaces." Like,
Nick's
no,
like,
no.
You filed your taxes?
But I remember being in therapy, and I told my therapist, my fears of approaching women and talking to them, and he's like, "Okay, I have an assignment for you." And every time I'd leave, he'd have an assignment for me to do, and I have to come back and tell him what happened. And he's like, "I want you between now and our next session to approach 3 women that you think are attractive and just have a conversation."
Not even to go on a date? Just
No,
to
just
have a
go up and say, "Hi,
conversation.
how are you?" and introduce
Yeah.
yourself. And I remember leaving, and I'm like, "What the fuck? I'm not doing that. Like, that's stupid." Because I'm like, why would I put myself in that position? Same thing, because I was getting defensive, and I was trying to protect myself from doing something scary. And that was the one thing in therapy I never did.
Speaking
never
of-
did
speaking
because
of
I just couldn't.
Dating, can you touch on that? Did that have an effect on like going on a first date, like after the divorce, going on dates
Oh,
again? Like you
yeah.
go out to dinner, you go
Yeah.
to eat. Like,
Well,
Would you get
What
anxious
was
about
that
stuff
like?
like that?
Yeah, that was the thing, is any social event, like I would dread going, or I was just like scared to go because I didn't trust myself.
If I may ask really quick, and I apologize because it might be a little bit personal. So let's say you were dealing with the bulimia and you'd eat and then you'd make yourself throw up. Would you panic knowing, like, let's say you did go to a party, or a dinner or whatever, and you're with people and you ate and then that emotion took over of I need to go throw up, but you couldn't because of where you were?
I would make it happen.
Really? You would just figure out a way to do it? Wow.
Even if I had to go walk down the street and go hide
bush.
behind like a dumpster or something, I would go do that.
But all this kind of brings up, though, like with our clients, because they come to us thinking, okay, I pay, I'm going to get the nutritional help, they're going to tell me what to do in the gym, and all my problems are going to go away. And we always tell them, and I warn my clients, at some point, once your body starts to respond the way it needs to be because it's getting what it's needed this entire time, your brain's going to do this thing where all of a sudden it's going to bring up shit from your past and it's not going to give you a choice but resolve it. And you're going to be hit hard. And you have two choices. At that point, you either just give up and say, fuck it, I'm not doing it anymore because now I'm thinking about these things again, or you resolve it and you move forward with a new identity, a new version of yourself. And we've had clients break down in the middle of their workouts. Remember my client, Sam, we were just doing medicine ball slams and she slammed it and then dropped and just curled up in the fetal position and was sobbing because she finally had that breakthrough. I've seen his clients do the same thing. They're pushing the sled, they're doing wall sits, they're doing leg extensions, and then floodgates open.
Yeah.
And that's the thing people don't understand is your physical change, your weight loss journey, whatever it is not going to happen if you do not work on the mental part of it.
But I also think
agree.
that right when that happens too with your clients, it's always like, they're like, I'm exhausted, I can't. And both of you, all three of you go, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
They're like, I can't do it. I'm like, well, that sucks because you're going to. So let's figure out how the hell to do it.
I think that breakdown moment isn't even like a breakthrough moment. It's just the possibility of entertaining the thought that maybe I can. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you can, yes, you can, yes, you can. It's just deny.
Just the realization that they can't. They say they can't. We say they can. They do it, and then the brain's like, "Holy shit, dude, you did it!"
And then I don't even think it's like a full on like commitment. It's just your brain's like, maybe, like it's just a maybe. It's just it's that inception of the thought that maybe I could.
Yeah.
And back to what Colton was saying earlier too. And yes, pick the right professional to speak about your problems and issues. But I think step one is to just talk about it. Right?
Just make someone aware of it.
Yeah. And then step two, okay, let's hire a professional. And step three, in the future, hire a coach, right? And then that ties on to our coaching as well. And I think because of what we've seen and what we've dealt with, and then you've been through that yourself as well.
Yeah.
And we coach through a lot of our coaching is through mindset. Learning how to eat more, learning that food is fuel, learning that when it's time to cut, you will be hungry. Yeah. We have to literally tell them, hey, just so you know, we're going to cut, you're going to be hungry. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, it's okay. Hunger is your friend when we're on a cut. Now we are intentionally cutting calories. You will lose weight, you will lose fat. And so when they know that and they cut, they're like, oh, YoYo says this is normal.
This is normal. It's like normal. What I'm feeling is normal. Because if we didn't tell them that and they felt it, they're like, wait, am I supposed to be hungry?
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be this hungry? And then they panic.
And we also let our client know that you will get to the point where you will mess up. It's okay. You will get to the point where you're going to have a fuck it day. It's okay. Number one thing that you have to do, communicate. Please, please, please. And they do. They communicate with me. Hey, yo, I fucked up yesterday. And I'm like, what do you mean? Well, I had a Sprite. Remember Corey?
Yes.
I had a Sprite.
It was a Sprite. I was like, oh, you got me shitting me.
Remember that? The Sprite.
Dude, I wish it's what my clients
but I'm just saying.
Right?
I'm just saying, like, or yesterday, we went out for a pizza and I had a slice. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, dude, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
That's life.
It's okay.
But creating the environment for them to be able to tell us that. Because I have clients who are afraid to. Yeah. And like, I didn't want to tell you because I wasn't sure if you were going to get mad. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to get mad because that's going to now associate guilt with this food.
Exactly.
So I tell them, I'm like, and plus you ate it yesterday. So what can we do about it today? I'm like, so when all I tell my clients is recognize in the moment you were feeling something. So the next time those feelings come up, try as best as you can to just pay attention. Feel what you need to feel. If you need to text me and say, hey, I'm dealing with that stress again. Last week I got pizza when I felt this way. I want it again. If you get the pizza, you get the goddamn pizza. Like, it's fine. But all that matters is what do you do afterward and then the following days. Don't dwell on it. Forgive yourself. Be gentle. Be kind. But just be honest. I'm never going to yell, never going to get mad. Like, well, because you ate that pizza, I'm going to fucking take food away.
Yeah,
No,
it's funny because like,
hey, thanks for telling me.
Our clients think that we're going to be so disappointed in them. And I'm like, I'm not disappointed. You're the one that's disappointed in you, you know? But I also think another thing is that, the hunger aspect is like, I've had to create a new relationship with hunger, right? Like, because I used to be terrified of it because I knew that I could go, it could set me off, you know? And so that's where I had to be like, okay, like hunger is okay. And it's your intention behind it. Like if you're healing or letting go and wanting your body to, you know, you're wanting to feel better in your body and you're creating safety through that, then that's okay. But if you're in it to punish yourself because you hate the way you look or whatnot, then that is not okay.
We're going to talk about punishment really before this. But before that, I want to talk about there's a difference between hungry and starving. You guys have to understand that, okay? We have so many clients were telling us, hey, coach, I'm starving. No. You're not starving. You're just hungry. You eat 4, 5, 6 meals a day,
Or you're bored.
Yes, or you're bored. But I'm talking about when they're cutting, though, right?
Oh,
Coach, I'm starving. I'm starving. I'm like, no. Let me explain the difference. When I tell them that, they're like, oh, I am just hungry. It's okay. I'm like, hunger is your friend. We're cutting. It's okay.
Yeah, if you were starving, I would expect you to fire me.
Yeah, exactly.
But really quick, going back to what you were saying though, like they think that we're going to be disappointed in them and mad.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of it also is social media. There's all these stupid ass influencers and these people who don't know shit who are on there and they're saying, if you eat this, this is what's going to happen. And these people who walk into the grocery stores and just grab some random fucking thing off the shelf and talk about the ingredients. And if you eat this, this is what's going to happen. And like I saw, there's a video going around on TikTok of this kid saying something about like a surefire way to lose 30 pounds in like 15 days by only eating one meal. And talking about what that one meal is. He has no nutritional background. He looks like he's never, I'm not trying to judge him by saying he's never worked out, but he doesn't look the part. But it's just these people who say extreme things to get you to relate to it and be like, holy shit, okay. So that's why I'm in this position, because I'm eating bananas. So if I just don't eat bananas, then I'm going to be fine. It's like,
which lead me to the punishment side of things. I hate when coaches do this, and I've seen it from time and time again. When coaches like, well, if you eat that, then you should go run a mile. Or if you have a donut, that's equivalent of you doing an hour of cardio. Or whatever the case may be.
which how the hell does a donut equal an hour?
I don't understand that. And people do that sometimes. And sometimes when I first started in this industry and I had a coach, I'm like, hey, coach, I had a cheat meal. Do you want me to do extra cardio? And he would let me. And I'm like, okay,
cool.
yeah, sure. So that means if I have another cheat meal, I'm going to do the same fucking thing.
And that was like with my eating disorder. Like if I would overeat or anything, I'd be like, okay, now I got to go get on the stair stepper for 30 minutes and just like kill myself in my workout.
And burn off those calories. Like, but you understand, by the time you eat that meal and then go and do the cardio, you haven't processed what you ate. So you're not burning off those calories. You're burning off calories from what you ate before.
Yeah. And people don't understand that. And again, back to your shitfluencers is what we call them. These people, all they want to do is they do,
Control.
They want to control, but at the same time, it's all clickbait, right? They want you to click something because they title, do not eat this. This is poison, blah, 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 whatever that case may be. And then if you look at their viewers and comments and shares, thousands of millions of shares, just by that one person says that you're not supposed to consume broccoli.
And I think like that's another problem which ties into modern medicine or Western medicine is we just want someone to tell us like what we should be eating or the pill we should be taking instead of us truly like sitting with ourselves and being able to listen to our own bodies and seeing like what we need. Because everyone's body is so different.
Because of the social media influencers that I think, in my honest opinion, can lead to much more eating disorder.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And especially when you're not educating.
But not just that, but also friends and family. And so I want to bring up one of my clients, I won't say their name, but when they started at a very high weight, like well over the 300s, gave them the meal plan, told her what I wanted her to do, and then a week or so later I get a text, hey, is there a pill I can take along with this to help me lose weight faster? And so I text her back, like, why are you asking? And then opened up, well, because I'm just frustrated with where I'm at. I really want to lose weight. I'm like, that's what I need you to talk about. Stop thinking about medication. Stop thinking about pills, because there's nothing out there. They're sure, like, you know, semaglutide and Ozempic and all these things that can help, but your blood work tells me you don't need it, so you're not going to take it. And then the same client texted me the other day saying, hey, my friend texted me and said that her husband has lost 100 pounds after doing like a bariatric surgery. So she's asking my opinion on it, and I'm like, why? Well, because he lost weight, so my friend's telling me that I should. Is that something I need to look into? I'm like, are you 600-700 pounds? No. And you've lost 7 pounds already, and you're hungry, so I just gave you more food, right? So you can see it's working. Things are starting to click. So I get your friends and family may be concerned, and they just want to offer help. But sometimes that help that they're offering is going to do more damage. And I've never understood why people are more willing to listen to a friend or a family member say, well, why don't you just do this instead, who has no background in it or no knowledge in it, versus someone like us who is certified. Right. We know what we're doing. You know, I don't want to use the term expert, but I mean, I know a hell of a lot more than your freaking friend. Why do they not want to listen to us and just follow it?
Because they want quick results.
Yeah, it's just instant gratification. It's just, well, you know, if I can just take this pill, then cool, I'd be fine. So, hey, I'm going to ask my coach, like, hey, you know, is there that secret doctors don't want us to know about that you know about that you can hook me up with?
Well, when I was taking fat burners, I remember, like I said before, like I lost 10 pounds in 2 weeks. Yeah. You know? Yeah. But you bet your ass I gained it right back just as fast, if not quicker. And then I developed a horrible relationship with myself, my body, and food. And so there's no...
Yeah, they want to lose the weight, but, you know, like with semaglutide and Ozempic, you get on these shots, and realistically, and you can find peer review articles, and I'll even send it to people if y'all want to question me on this, you can only be on it for 8 to 12 weeks. Cycle. That's it. But in general, you should only be on it 8 to 12 weeks. But these clinics now are advertising it, saying you don't need to change your eating habits and that they can get it to you on a monthly basis. But now, according to the Wall Street Journal, an article that Johan sent me, the average price in the country for semaglutide and Ozempic is ranging between $800 to $1,300 a month. And people are paying that.
Oh, yeah.
And then they're getting that, and then they're going right across the street to In-N-Out and getting a goddamn cheeseburger.
Do you think that people would care if... I feel like if there was no social media, we honestly wouldn't care what we all look like, you know?
I had this vision the other day. This is off topic. I don't know what I was doing. I had this vision of when we were all hanging out in front of my house back in Riverton, my parents' house. We were riding bikes and over each other, put ramps together, like random shit. None of us has a cell phone. Nope.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, excuse me, we do, but it was a flip phone.
Yeah.
Right.
So it was just for our parents to call us or us call them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I miss those moments.
No, we were riding bikes. We're having airsoft wars in your backyard. We're hiding from the cops in the park.
We
who
were the
chasing
last
us.
generation to actually like live a life.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's crazy.
Do you guys ever notice that I only follow like 20 people on Instagram? And it was because I fell into that trap of comparison and not being like somebody or whatever.
Yeah, I had to unfollow a bunch of women on social media because I was like, what is this doing for me?
Yep.
You know?
But the chances are those women that you're comparing yourself to are editing their photos.
Exactly.
So shout out to Goob for calling out these bitches. Welcome to the show.
Exactly. I love that.
But one thing I want to make sure we talk about, I don't know where you're going to go, is there's eating disorders, but there's also disordered eating. And those can be two different things. So I want to make sure we also touch on that and clarify.
That could be
before
like
we
a
go there.
thing.
Before we go there, actually, I want to read 3 types of eating disorder really quick. Can I do that? So number 1 is anorexia, right? So anorexia is basically a character by self-starvation and weight loss resulting in low weight for their height and age. Yep. So basically that's what they do. Now the behavior is this not behavior. This is more of a symptom. Sorry. So obviously we know anorexia because that's a very, very highly, because we all know what that is. And then obviously when they do binge, they vomit immediately, right? To not cause the weight gain. Yep. The second one is bulimia, which I think that's kind of where you're in.
Yeah, I think you may have experienced both ends of the spectrum.
Yeah,
anorexia,
I feel like I really
and
went
then
to
bulimia.
all of them because I would starve myself for sure.
So the bulimia is basically an individual typically alternate dieting or eating only low-calorie safe foods with binge eating on forbidden high caloric foods. And then that results of this possible signs that someone may have bulimia. And tell me if it's true, okay?
Okay.
Frequent trips to the bathroom right after meals. That's a real thing. Like you've done that multiple times, even on a date.
Even at work. No, not dates.
Oh.
But I would do it at work.
At work.
Literally take that last bite as soon as you swallow, get up, go to the bathroom.
No way. Okay.
Yep, I would chug a bunch of water because I found out that it would make it come out a lot easier.
Yeah.
The second one was large amounts of food disappearing or unexplained empty wrappers of food containers. Yeah. Okay. Chronic sore throat.
I didn't have that.
No. Okay. Swelling of saliva gland. No. That's DK. No. Oh, what about laxative or diet pills misuse? Well, you know,
The fat burners.
Did you use the laxatives?
Yep.
You did?
Really?
See,
Yep.
this is new to me. I'm literally reading this and I'm like, people who use laxative, I had no idea.
Holy shit.
I thought it was
Yeah,
just diet
because
pills.
I would cause so much stress on my stomach that it would make it so I wouldn't be able to go to the bathroom. So then I was like, I got to get...
Because you're so inflamed. Like you got.
And the next one was recurrent unexplained diarrhea.
Didn't have that.
No, okay. And then misuse of diuretics, water pills. That's a big one actually. Which I think I want to tie that to bodybuilding too. I want to talk about that.
Yeah.
Later. Feeling dizzy or fainting from excessive purging behaviors resulting in dehydration.
Yeah.
That's what. And that's crazy. And the result of this can cause bulimia can lead to rare but potentially fatal complications, including esophageal tears, gastric ruptures, and dangerous cardiac arrhythmia. Yeah,
Yeah.
And I had no idea
Yep.
that can cause.
Yeah, well,
such
I
thing.
remember I would go months without having a period. And I was like, I don't care because I'm skinny.
Yeah, that's what. That's literally that's actually under anorexia. Yeah, that's the first thing on anorexia. It says menstrual periods cease,
Yep.
and I'm like, what?
Yep. Well,
Turns out your body doesn't like it and you're dysregulated.
Yeah,
Go figure.
Weird how that works. But one thing I want to bring up though, it's a family member of mine. I'm not going to say who it is, just to protect them. But they have disordered eating, and I'd also say maybe a little bit of a eating disorder, like not bulimia, but definitely anorexia, because they're very, very, very thin. And I've told them the only fat they have is in their boobs. That's it, nothing else.
if that.
Yeah. And they thought that what they were doing was, in terms of eating, was normal. And no matter who talked to them about it or tried to bring it up, they'd always have some way to justify it. And it didn't click in their head that maybe what they were doing was damaging them until they were here visiting and they were taking a shower and starts freaking out because chunks of hair are falling out. And they don't know what's going on. So I told them, we're going to get your blood work done. I helped them order it the next day. We got the results and I'm looking at it. And this is where I had to tell them, you are malnourished and you're starving yourself, because their kidney markers, their bun and bun creatinine ratio were so far below normal that when I told them they're starving themselves and the kidneys are shutting down, the doctor told them the same thing, that their body's surviving solely off of muscle tissue because they're hardly eating anything. And they're trying to do all these organic, stupid ass things. And, I read that if I eat an egg yolk, it's going to cause this issue, so I can't have that. And so it took to that extreme of seeing hair fall out in the shower and a doctor and a family member who's a nutritionist telling him your kidneys are shutting down. You're you're starving yourself. You're going to die if you keep this up. You can't have kids if you keep doing this. And so just a lot of times it gets to that extreme. And that's where also just get your blood work done, because that's going to tell you that what you're doing may or may not be working. And it's just, it's sad to see.
And the next topic that I want to talk about is, we experienced this, and I've seen it, and I've experienced it a little bit after my very first bodybuilding show. So I'm talking, people that can or will develop eating disorder after you do a bodybuilding show.
Yeah.
And by the way, that's real.
Yeah.
Okay. And one of the reasons why is, one, I'm coaching someone right now, won't say her name, done a couple of shows, and the last show was very close to Christmas. For some reason, on Christmas Day, she was literally eating and eating and eating, like a lot of food. And it wasn't normal food. It was just a lot of just straight candies and empty calories. 2-3 o'clock in the morning, she drove herself to the hospital because she had such a stomach issue that she had no idea. it was such a pain that she had to drive herself to the ER, and they ended up doing a scan, and they figured out that her gallbladder was almost exploded from her eating that much calories. Fast forward a couple of months now, we're 12 weeks post show now, but before that, what I had to do was, okay, I got to figure out, okay, how can I reverse her out of that deficit? Are we going to have to do another deficit? Are we have to? So we literally, instead of doing a reverse, I had to, right after her binge, I had to take all of her carbs away. It wasn't a punishment, just so you guys know.
No.
I had to take all of her carbs away and then had her measure her glucose level every morning. Mind you, on her 6th day with no carbs, her glucose was still above 85 to 90 ratio. It was still high without eating carbs for 6 days. So the amount of glucose level that was in her system was still in her for like the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So I had to clear her out and then slowly add 50 grams.
Yep.
And she was hungry.
Yeah.
And you would say starving at this point. She was hungry. She was like, Coach, can I eat more food? I'm like, I can't give you. I'm like, I need you to check your glucose level again. And it was still high. I'm like, okay. So we 50 grams of carbs, and then we did 100, and then we moved forward to 150, and now she's eating 250 on a high day, 150 on a low day. But it took us a long time, and her mental she went down the drain mentally. She had to go to the doctor. I had her do blood work to make sure that she's okay. Thank God it's good.
Yep.
I had her get a DEXA scan to make sure she's not gaining a shit ton of body fat. Thank God that is also good.
Or losing muscle mass.
Or losing muscle mass.
That can cause issues.
Because sometimes, what people don't understand, just because you binge for that one day or weekend, it will not affect you the next week. It actually affects you 2, 3, 4 weeks later, right? Because you still have so much.
Well, and then it kind of becomes like an addiction.
Yeah.
Because it's like a high.
It is.
It's like a high, and then you feel the guilt and shame, and so then you got to hurry and get rid of it, right?
And so the whole time I was giving her no carbs for that first week, and then slowly increase her carbs up, and she was dying for some sweets. She was having a hard time controlling herself not to binge again. And finally now, 12 weeks in, we're out of that funk. She's eating more food. She's happier now, but that took a lot for her. And I've almost every week I've had 2 to 3 phone calls with her just to check in. So we would have this conversation, literally what we talked about today, except eating disorder. Because here's the thing, reading the types of eating disorders for the past few days, I'm learning about it and doing my research. Now a lot of my clients, they have that same tendencies, and I will not tell them that they have eating.
No, we're not going to label it.
We're not going to label
cause
it
issues
because it's going to cause issues, and they're going to use it as a crutch, right? So,
well, and they probably already know.
They probably already know.
You know.
They probably already
but
know.
they don't want to. They just don't want to address it. But they're almost wanting someone to validate and tell them like, "Hey, you have this." Like, I knew. Like, I've known for so long. I have it. And now they have something to call it. But I want to really quick what you just said though with this client of yours. You took her carbs away, but you said it wasn't a punishment. That's one thing I want people to understand is this was not a punishment. The blood work and the glucose monitoring told us we had to do that. So for anyone who has a coach or is looking for a coach, when situations like this come up, or even if it's just going through the program, ask why. Seek to understand, because, and I've had this conversation with my clients, and they always tell me how thankful they are that we explain to them the why we're increasing their calories, why we're increasing macros, why carbs are okay, why we're taking them into a deficit, what it means, what we're going to do. And we explain it to where they're not just following blindly, they understand and they're okay with it. But if you have a coach, if they're going to put you through something, or in this case, take carbs away, and I say, oh, well, hey coach, how come you're doing that? Oh, because I said so, just trust me. Immediately fire their ass. Don't even give them a second chance. Just get rid of them, because that is dangerous. You need to understand why. And this wasn't a punishment. And we explained to her, hey, your glucose is way too high. That's dangerous. We have to go 0 carb for a while. We're going to check it every day. The second it starts to self-regulate, we're not going to go back to 200 grams from 0. It's you only get 50. And then we're going to see how your body responds. And then I'm going to adjust things. And it's very particular on our side what we do, but there's a purpose, and we're going to explain it.
And basically, I call it the health phase. We literally had to go through a health phase. I'm like, okay, we gotta do this the right way. I mean, you did it. We're moved on from that. We're not going to dwell on that. Let's. I hate saying fix because I don't want to fix somebody, but let's learn from this, right?
Yeah.
So it's a learning curve. Now, bodybuilding. People want to be a bodybuilder, and that's okay. Is it the healthiest thing in the world?
No,
I'm going to say 0. That is not healthy. Bodybuilding is not healthy because we're on extreme deficit for the long periods of time. And then not to mention the PEDs that we have to get on that to look certain ways. And yes, we have protocols for that. Don't worry. But what I want to talk about, a lot of people that I know, myself included, that went through our first bodybuilding show. It was a fight for me not to binge after I was done being in a deficit.
Sure.
So when we tell people you have to go into reverse dieting, you can't go from 0 carbs to all of a sudden eating 300 grams of carbs the next day after the show. Because you got to remember, after the show, what do? After the show, we go eat. What do we eat? Oh
Whatever
my
the
gosh.
hell we can fit
whatever
in our
we want.
gullet.
And we allow them to do that because you earned it,
Yep.
you know, again, but we as a coach, we have to understand who your clients are. And if you give them that leeway Sunday and Monday, so now you have Saturday night, Sunday,
all day
and Monday. Now you have 2.5 days to eat whatever the fuck you want. And then by the time Tuesday comes around,
You're so bloated.
inflamed, you
Yep.
gain probably 3 to 5 pounds of water weight, and you feel disgusted,
Yep.
right? So 2 things is going to happen. Either you're not going to want to eat those stuff ever again, or you're going to continue to binge. Which one are you going to go?
Yep.
Or are you going to listen to your coach and actually reverse diet out of that? And it's hard.
Yeah.
My first show, it was hard, bro. Like it was dumb too because we went on vacation right after my first show. So that was not a good idea.
Yeah.
Like how can you go on vacation right after your first show and you're trying to reverse diet?
Right.
Dude, you cannot do that. And so which means now we know when our client are getting ready to go on a wedding or a cruise or whatever vacation, and we want to cut them and they want to be lean, right? But we do not cut you until that day. We cut you 2 weeks out before you leave, simply because we want to reverse you out of that deficit, let your body rest a little bit, and then eat.
We feed you into it.
Yeah, we feed you into it. By
So
the time
when you go,
when
you
you
can
go,
eat what you want.
eat
Yeah.
whatever you want, not overeat, but eat whatever you want, and not causing any issue, right? So understand this: if you're a bodybuilder and you're listening to this, and you've done a show before, and you've had some kind of developed eating disorder afterwards, that is normal. Just so you know. Yes, you can fight it, and yes, you can fix it, and yes, you can learn about it, and then you can do better. By the time you do the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th show, it gets better.
You're gonna know what to do.
Like Colton saw me did a couple of shows, and then Jess was like, "What do you want to eat after the show?" And I'm like, I just want one meal, and that was it. Don't buy. And now when I do a show, I do not let her buy me treats. I don't go buy treats. I'll do an Oreo. You know, I'll buy an Oreo and something like that, but that's it. Like I just have a meal, I'm good. You know,
The thing for me after my shows is I realized leading up to the show, everything sounds good. But the second we step off of stage, nothing sounds good. So then, like, same thing, my wife or my parents would ask me what I want. I'm like, let me think about it. Because if I tell you now, I'm not going to eat any of it.
Yeah.
So after my last show at Wasatch in 2022, I go back upstairs to the hotel room, and my dad and stepmom stayed behind, and they were asking, like, tell us what you want. We're going to go get everything. I'm like, honestly, I just want sushi. Which is technically not really a cheat meal because I don't get deep fried things. It's just all raw. So it was almost like a refeed, you could say, right?
Yeah.
So I got a couple rolls, ate that, showered, went to bed. The next day, woke up. My wife and I went to a diner, and I just got some hash browns and eggs and bacon and called it good. And when we get home, and same thing, it was Sunday. And so usually we let our athletes eat Saturday night, Sunday. And then for me, at least, depending on what they ate, when they check in Monday, 2 days after the show, will determine how the reverse is going to go. Am I going to slowly introduce carbs starting then, or are we going to stay 0 carb for maybe another couple of days? But we get home, and I'm sitting there, I'm like, honestly, none of this shit sounds good.
Yeah.
Like nothing on DoorDash sounds good. So I made chicken and rice, and I just ate my normal food. And I just, instead of doing my 2 cups of rice, I just stuck to a cup and did that. Sent my check into Brandon on Monday and told him, and he's like, why did you do that? I'm like, because nothing sounded good, so I just wanted my food. But because I did that, he immediately started me out at 200 grams of carbs a day. 2 days after my show, and I was 0 carb for a month. But because I was able to control myself, I didn't have that issue.
So everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
Did you know that a bodybuilder can possibly develop eating disorder.
Oh,
after.
yeah. That's why when everyone would be like, are you going to do a show? Like, have you thought about it? And
Like, no.
I was like, no.
Yeah, actually, if we've known people that have some sort of eating disorder, and they've openly talked about it, and then they think about doing a show, and I'm like,
Like, we're not going to tell you no, but can we at least just warn you?
that's a
You're
loaded
going to need
question,
to have
bro.
your therapist on call.
Yeah, or
you
showed
need-
up to the show.
Yeah, have to be there. Yeah, to live with you
He's
for
like
a couple of
backstage
days or something.
watching
Yeah.
you. I'm like, you better not pick up that goddamn donut after you're done.
But the other thing, really quick, is we have clients that come in, and then we increase their metabolic rate, and then we cut them, and then we take them through a growth phase, and we do these things. But it's because we, as coaches, have done that. We all know what it's like to be on a deficit.
Yeah.
We know what it's like to carb cycle. We know what it's like to go through a health phase, to bulk and all that. So if you're going to hire a coach and they're going to cut you and, lean you out, but they've never done it themselves, they're not going to know what the fuck you're experiencing. But when they come to us and they're like, dude, I've just did an hour cardio, my carbs are like non-existent, like I think I'm going to die. And you're like, no, I know what you're feeling. You're not going to die. You're being dramatic. You're fine. And we can talk them out of it. But
I also know a coach, right? And this is something that I want to talk about with Desi as well, is that you've developed that and you know how to come back to that. You know how to cope with it. You know how to do it now, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have that issue anymore.
Yeah.
But I know a coach that still have that issue. And what I'm noticing, it's how they coach as well. They will not let you binge. They will not let you eat out. They will not let you.
they coach based off of their issues that they can't resolve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or if that person has some kind of eating disorder and they don't want to bulk because they don't want to feel fat or be fat. And often, guys, ladies, you're gonna have a little extra fat in the off season. That's normal. That's okay.
But it's how you bulk. Bulking
Right.
doesn't mean you get in and out and Chick-fil-A every goddamn day. It means, hey, like you're just eating more food than normal. The same food you're eating when you cut, just higher amounts. So yeah, it's inevitable. You're gonna put on a little bit of fat, but eating clean while you bulk is the best way to make sure you're not gaining excess fat.
And when you have a coach that are afraid to eat out, and I've trust me, we would be outing, eat normal food, and that person
Egg
who
whites.
is a coach, he would eat egg whites and eat clean foods, and I'm like, dude, this is your cheat meal. Have it. I'm like, he goes, no, I just want to be lean all the time. So then I'm starting to realize he doesn't really bulk his client because he doesn't want them to be fat. I'm like, no, that's your issue, bro.
But it can also
And
be an educational thing. He doesn't
Right.
know how to bulk properly.
Exactly.
So if he doesn't know how to do it, he does not know how to take his clients through it.
And then it could be flipped if that person has anorexia tendency.
Yep.
So that person will always constantly be on a deficit. And guess what? The clients are doing the same thing. So what I'm saying is this: you cannot be a fitness coach or a health coach if you have that issue or tendencies yourself. Like, we have to learn how to cope with that.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that we have this conversation now.
Yeah.
And ladies, so if you want to hire Des, please, if you have these types of tendencies, or if you had eating disorders before and you want to work with someone that had that experience, she is your person. Not me, unfortunately. But can we help you? Yes. Can we educate you? Absolutely.
But we can't relate to what you're going
Cannot
through.
relate to
And we're never
that.
going to pretend like we can.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. And that's the same thing. And that's what we have these consultations. We have to have a conversation because we know who fits who. If it doesn't fit me, that's okay. Maybe you can go to Nick, or maybe you can go to Des, right? And everyone's coached differently and based off of our experience. So I just want to touch base on the bodybuilding thing, because a lot of people don't talk about it. A lot of people hide it, especially in your bodybuilder, because you will look strong. We want to feel strong. And we want to look strong all the time on social media. No, fuck that.
No.
Talk about it.
We want to look lean all the time, which also, really quick, just to touch on it, being that lean, like Jon touched on it earlier, it's not realistic.
Nope.
We're only that shredded for like a week, if that at most. But again,
6 months.
to be completely transparent, it's the PEDs, or as we call it, gear, that these people are on. So when you're looking at these dudes and these chicks who are just completely fucking shredded, it literally isn't natural. So don't fall into that trap, easier said than done, of comparing yourself to that, because we don't look like that all the time. We just do a shit ton of photo shoots to get a bunch of pictures to post year round, or as much as we can. But in reality, you look like that for a week, because it's not healthy to be that lean.
And the last, 8 weeks now, I've been dealing with my own
Yeah.
mental health issues that I've been dealing with, and which is weird to hear that, because I never would have said that, right?
Yeah.
But it wasn't really a huge deal for me, but for a lot of people. But for me, it was, because it's starting to get to the point where bodybuilding becomes a chore. Work becomes a chore. Doing a podcast becomes a chore. I'm like, what the fuck? Why am I feeling this? So then I start to talk about it, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's normal. Again, no one talks about it. No one talks about it's okay not to be okay. And I don't know if you guys probably know that I haven't really posted a lot on my social media. Not a post. Stories, I'm getting into that. Once I get comfortable with my stories, and then I'll do a post. I haven't created any new content because I don't really care to, right? Because I need to work on me. As soon as my cup is full, you'll see YoYo a lot more. I promise. And I'm almost there. I always say I'm about 90%, 95%. There's an incident happened last week that I need to take care of mentally as well. I'm over that now. But I think this next week I will be better. And it's okay not to be okay.
Yes.
To end this conversation, what is your advice, Des, for the people that going through maybe a similar journey as you are, and as a coach now too? What is your advice?
My biggest advice is to get help and to open up and talk about it. I feel like I've been not necessarily hiding it, but I haven't been open about it. And it's funny because I've actually had quite a few clients that do have or have had an eating disorder. And so I know that whatever struggles we're going to, it's to help somebody else who is going through the same thing. And so I really want to create safety for women to be able to come forward and to be able to be open about it and be able to set themselves free from that as well, because I went through that for far too long. I was definitely like a stubborn ass and thought that like I could just handle it all myself. And if I would have gotten the help that I got towards the end of my journey, like it would have saved me a whole lot of time and a whole lot of hurt as well. So yeah, my biggest advice is just to get help and to not be ashamed of it.
Not be ashamed, not be guilty of it. Just be. Because
that makes it so much worse as well.
100%.
And I've come to find out that so many women, I would say 60 to 70% of women have had or have experienced some kind of eating disorder. Like it's not uncommon.
No.
Anorexia, I did research earlier. It says anorexia had higher fatality rates than people that are abusing opioids.
Opioids, yeah.
That's crazy to me. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Which is crazy because you're malnourished. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're not
But
eating.
again, it's because people aren't talking about it, so no one knows until it's too late, until the organs start shutting down and all that. But people who are on opioids, because it's this huge epidemic in the country that we're now finally paying attention to, which is its whole other issue.
One of the things I didn't want to share with you guys, though, I think this year, because every year my social media kind of changed on like the topics that I usually talk about. I think this year I'm going to talk definitely more mental health stuff for sure.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are excited about that. They messaged me on social media when I posted my story, and they're like, you should really talk about this more and more.
I feel like it plays the biggest part.
It is. And I will continue to do what I've been doing before, obviously, but you guys will get to see me talk about a lot about a mental health side of things. And Colton's going to be, we're going to do an episode with Colton as well, because he's big on that side of it as well. So thank you, Des, for sharing that. And this is awesome. And you're right. And Colton was right. There's so many people, ourselves included, that look up at you. Like you have to understand that there's so many people who watch your social media. They watch what you post. They watch what you say. Keep shining the way you are, because it can help, literally saves people's lives.
Yeah.
So keep doing that.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, thank you for listening. Nick, thank you for being here. Colton, thank you for being here as well. And you guys, thank you for sharing our YouTube channel and our Spotify. Keep doing that. And this is going to save people's lives too. So thank you guys for listening, and on to the next. Later.